money on me because I didn't have enough on top to do a flat top.
Yeah, well, honesty is the best case, you know. You must not have heard us, I tell you. Thursday, 3 of us on this. 4 of us on Friday. That's a $15 average haircut. That's a lot of hair.
That's a lot of hair.
So when people tell me I'm going to talk about what I see the other day, I'm like, no, don't tell me that. No, $1,300. But that's still,
Okay, boom, boom, boom. Is this on? Yes, it is. Okay. Okay, boom, boom. Good evening and welcome. I call this meeting of the Montgomery County School Board to order at 7 p.m. on February 15, 2022. Good evening. As you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Our next item is adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. Electronic meeting participation. Ms. Parton has asked to participate in tonight's meeting electronically as she's home recovering from surgery. Is there a motion to approve her electronic meeting participation this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. Thank you, board members. As we start tonight's meeting, I want to thank everyone in the audience for being here tonight. The purpose of the meeting for the school board is to conduct business of the school division. Conversations in the audience can often be distracting to board members because of our close proximity in the room. If you wish to have a conversation with another member of the audience, please move to the hallway. You are welcome to return to the room once you've finished your conversation. I'd like to now go to our student representatives. Tonight we've got Jeffrey Delaney from Auburn High School and Sean Herndon from Christiansburg High School, and they're going to read our mission and beliefs.
Okay. MCPS is an innovative educational community. We value diversity and we are committed to equity and inclusion. MCPS empowers learners to realize success in an ever-changing global society through collaboration with communities, families, staff, and students. MCPS provides a safe, engaging learning environment and intentional exposure to positive social, emotional, and academic experiences. Beliefs. All students can learn in order to pursue their dreams.
Schools are safe places of joy, wonder, and creativity.
Every person deserves to be loved, valued, and respected.
Kindness is an essential skill of a responsible, productive community member.
The diversity of our community is one of our greatest strengths.
All people deserve equitable access to opportunities and resources.
Every child deserves an advocate.
Honoring the voices of the students and other stakeholders strengthens the school community.
Open communication and feedback are vital to our growth.
Learning and teaching are collective efforts that begin at birth and involve the entire community.
Relationship building and high expectations are foundational to success and to student success.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we go to public address, I actually want to divert from our agenda for a moment, and don't get mad at me, board clerk, for this. I have actually a school board proclamation I'd like to read, and I'm going to hand it to two of our most trusted and hardworking individuals that we have here at on our school board, or part of our school board office. It is School Board Clerk Appreciation Week. So I'm going to read a proclamation that we have here. Whereas school board clerks in each locality throughout our great Commonwealth are appointed by law to fulfill their duties and responsibilities. And whereas school board clerks are responsible for keeping accurate records of the meetings and proceedings of the school board, a record of all receipts and disbursements, and a record of all official acts. And whereas school board clerks perform such other duties in connection with the school business of his, her, county, or city as may be required by the school board. And whereas school board clerks maintain frequent contact with the public, including parents, employees, and the media on behalf of the school board and superintendent. And whereas school board clerks in the performance of their duties are often required to work extra hours attending school board meetings, and whereas school board clerks join with school boards to help ensure that students achieve to their highest potential, and whereas school board clerks provide an invaluable service for school board members and superintendents, the VSBA Board of Directors does hereby recognize the third week of February as School Board Clerk Appreciation Week in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And whereas the Montgomery County School Board joins the VSBA in recognizing the many and varied contribution of school board clerks, now therefore be it resolved that at its meeting on the 15th day of February 2022, the Montgomery County School Board also recognizes the third week of February as School Board Clerk Appreciation Week. And we can't thank you and Morgan, our newest school board clerk, enough for all of the help that you have provided us over the years, and myself over the last couple of years. We thank you very much for all your hard work, and they are here till the very wee hours of the morning with us, just waiting for us to shut up so they can go home. But they wait patiently, and we appreciate everything they've done. And Brenda, since you've joined MCPS, your voice on snow days is definitely one that has been so very welcome. I can remember even when I was a teacher and a parent, it was greatly appreciated. So thank you guys for everything you've done. I have a copy of a signed proclamation for both of you. So we appreciate it. Did I get in trouble for diverting? No, okay. Oh, blame it on my novice skills. Next, we go to public address. Our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, employees, and community members about education matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. The clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers who get to address the board. I will call each speaker up by name in the order that they've signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address, and the screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. Please state your name and area of the county you live in, and please keep your mask on when speaking. And our first speaker tonight is Bob Beard, and on deck is Alicia Vaught.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Bob Beard. I live here in Montgomery County. I do not choose to be a common man. It is my right to be uncommon if I can. I seek opportunity, not security. I do not wish to be a kept citizen, humbled or dulled by having the state look after me. I want to take the calculated risk to dream and to build and to fail and to succeed. I refuse to barter and sit for a doll. I prefer the challenges of life to guaranteed existence, the thrill of fulfillment to the stale calm of utopia. I will not trade freedom nor my dignity for a handout. I will not cower to any master nor bend to any threat. It is my heritage to stand erect, proud, and unafraid to think and act for myself. Enjoy the benefit and creations that faces will boldly and say, I have done. All this is what it means to be American. This is from Dean Alfinge. And this is what we should be teaching in school. American exceptionalism and not how to live in fear. I've got some questions for tonight, like usual. Is there a great awakening to the tyranny of this progressive school system? How does fear shape our lives? Why live in fear? Why are we so divided? What caused this division? Who created this division? Where is the emergency? Why are the masks political? Who is profiting from this division? Where did the $13 million come from? And when are our taxes going to be lowered by $13 million for the unbudgeted revenue stream? What are we afraid of? Fear is one of the most powerful emotions. While highly useful in situations where a threat is immediate and the harm exists, it is the most debilitating and dangerous of emotions when presented unnecessarily. Is this school system using fear to control our kids? What is the cost of or risk assessment for wearing the mask? Here is the health issues with wearing a mask. Hypoxia, reduced CO2 levels in the blood. Do you think it's a good idea to rebreathe your exhaled CO2 over and over? These kids are doing it for 8 hours a day. Is that a good practice, breathing your own air in over and over again for 8 hours? There's an impairment of immunity. So the mask lowers it hinders your immune system from developing. Decreased mental acuity, increased risk of heart attack, increased CO2 levels in the bloodstream versus lung function. Increased headaches and dizziness, self-esteem, suicides are up, communication skills are lowered, lowering and growing. Science test scores have dropped by 25%, mask scores dropped 33%. Masks appear to be very expensive, all in the name of safety. I pray tonight that we become God-fearing, more God-fearing, Constitution-loving, and free-thinking Americans.
Thank you, Mr. Beard. Next up is Alicia Vaught, and on deck is Candy Beers.
Good evening, school board members. My name is Alicia Vaught. Senate Bill 739, as you guys probably know, is going to be signed into law very soon. So we're taking the power out of your hands and putting it back with the parents, the way it should be. And it's very concerning that you guys would take the power away from the parents. And Ms. Cass, let me just point out real fast, when you were introducing the public address comment, you said, this is the time we get to hear from the students, from the staff, and from the community members. You didn't mention parents, not one bit. And I think that's a big issue for Montgomery County because you guys do not like the parents. That's how I feel. Because you're taking the choice away from the parents and you're trying to take it and put it into your hands for financial reasons. I don't know. You're taking it away from us, and we have parents' law. So I just wanted to point that out. We sat here last year and listened to you guys preach to us about Governor Northam's executive orders and how we must follow them. You guys remember that? We do. So here's the governor that comes into office, but yet you don't want to follow his orders. Why is that? Why is it different from the last year when we were here to this year? 2 different governors, 2 different political parties. So we were supposed to follow it last year, but not this year. That makes no sense. And it makes all of you a bunch of hypocrites, except for Dana and Jamie. Ms. Cass, you also yelled at me the last time I was here for taking off my mask, but here's a picture of you right here on Facebook with a crowd of people.
That's it.
With no mask on. This is my
Excuse me?
time, and I don't
No.
interrupt you. Here's another picture
No.
with you with a no mask on.
I'm sorry, Ms. Vaught, you are done. If you are going to sit there and disparage a member of our school board, then you can sit down. If you have something effective to say,
I have facts and truth on my side.
I am not going to sit here.
This isn't about you anymore. It's about
Can we have a police officer, please?
Really? Are you
Yes.
that scared because of
No, I'm not scared. I don't care. I would like you to either talk about something, you can talk about something that concerns our school board.
Where's my team?
Is there something about our students you would like to talk about? Then talk about our students.
You're taking up my time.
Can you please ask Ms. Vaught to leave? Thank you.
What, for speaking the truth?
Ms. Vaughn, let's let the rest of us talk.
Can I finish?
No.
So you are.
If you would like to finish about students, but if your idea is to stand there,
It's not about you
Huh?
anymore. Now
She
it's
should be
about
able to
Dr.
say
Meyer.
her
I'd like to
piece.
call him
I've had
out.
to listen to people come and criticize me.
people came here and
Last year.
criticized you last year?
Absolutely. And I couldn't do anything about it. And
Exactly.
As well as
publicly,
me.
I was
So
humiliated.
people came here and they talked about your mask to your face. They showed pictures of your family. They showed pictures of your.
Yeah, they
I
did
didn't put those
worse.
pictures there. You did.
That doesn't make it right.
No, it
That
doesn't.
doesn't make it right, Jamie.
You're right, but I had to sit.
That's my family. That is, then
What do
fine.
you think about our family?
I am not.
Our family is being suffocated to death
I'm
by your
done.
policies.
Time is up.
What do
She
you
leaves or I leave.
Time is up. Time is up.
I'm done.
You can't deal with the truth. You don't need to be a
No.
school board member.
It's not the truth, but that's not the issue.
We're coming for your seats. We're coming for them, all of them. Except for Dana and Jamie. So with the rest of my time, I just want to say, parents and grandparents, if you guys want to run for office, if you want to run for a school board member seat, which we might have one vacant apparently, then come to the Second Monday Constitution Group. They are offering 2 free trainings next month, March the 14th, from 6 to 9 p.m. at the bowling alley in Christiansburg. One of the trainings is called How to Run for Office and Win. Another training is called Get to the Heart, How to Get Your Message Out. So these are 2 free trainings, again, at the Second Monday Constitution Group in Christiansburg. You can look it up and join on Facebook. So we want to offer those services to anybody that wants to run because these liberals are getting out of the school board. You guys have already just made the mama bears so mad now. But Dr. Meyer, I want to say something to you. In June of 2020, you remember when the liberals came to your office and they made that big list of demands and you bowed down to them and you caved into them and you gave into their demands. And then you called every teacher in Montgomery County Public School System a racist
How did you do that? Because you mandated implicit bias training for each and every school teacher. Why? Because you got called out, so you wanted to drag all of them down with you. And that was the start of this whole thing of CRT, of why we teach our kids to hate themselves and their skin color. All of that started with you, Dr. Meyer. You're the one that started it all. So you need to take it all back out of the school. School is for education and not indoctrination. Our kids, they don't feel safe coming to school, and I don't feel safe sending them to school. And that's bad. That's really sad. Schools are for education and not to be your little political pawns and put face diapers on. You guys need to understand what you're here to do, and that is a job, to make policy for our students. And our kids' job is to learn, but that's not what they've been doing. But thank you for your time.
Penny, you take over.
No, so we're going to suspend the meeting for a few minutes so we can get our chair back into the room.
We're sorry. Your call
Okay, I ask that you please put your mask on. Thank you.
When I'm speaking, I'm gonna have to pull down, because last time people couldn't hear me. Your sound. Is it, okay. Hi, I have 3 children in the Auburn
I'm
School
gonna ask that you
District.
please put your
Last
mask
week, I
on.
emailed the school
Ma'am?
board and Dr.
Ma'am?
Meyer. Compliance, I'll comply. Last week, I emailed the school board and Dr. Meyer asking why they are still masking our children after Youngkin's executive order. Dr. Meyer and 2 board members responded back, and I really do appreciate that. All 3 referenced a law that the school board is following and that they had to follow this law. The law they were referring to is the SB 1303. This is false information. The Supreme Court specifically says that this bill does not mandate mask wearing. This bill gives each school district the discretion to mask or forego the mask according to their circumstances. If SB 1303 require masks by law, there would be no discussion in these meetings. If SB 1303 did require masks by law, the school board would not need to vote on whether we have to mask our children or not. You now have the opportunity to do the right thing. It should be parents' choice as to whether we want to mask or unmask our kids. It should have always been our choice. Please don't wait until March 1st.
Okay, we do have our electronic speaker on the line at this point, so we'll go ahead and have Ms. Beers speak, and following her will be Joe Walker.
Okay. Hi, my name is Candy Beers. I'm a resident of Blacksburg and have a daughter in Harding Avenue Elementary. I'm a doctoral candidate in Human Development and Family Science at Virginia Tech. And before moving to Blacksburg to complete my PhD, I had a private practice in creative arts therapy in Richmond, Virginia, where I worked with children and families. My area of expertise as a therapist is interpersonal nonverbal communication between parents and children. Suffice it to say, I am well aware of the importance of nonverbal communication in early childhood as a means of emotional and social development. I am also aware of the importance of racial ethnic socialization in early childhood. I am here tonight to address the concerns of development and masks as a ruse of parent empowerment that Youngkin is using to support his individual agenda. I concern myself with human development and families every day. This is my job and my passion. What I know from creative arts, what I know from child and adolescent development and family science literature is that an extension of this pandemic by anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers is much more detrimental to the health of families and children than is wearing masks. But to address the concerns of masks and development, I did peruse some current peer-reviewed literature on this topic. There were only 3 publications in reputable journals, and 2 out of 3 debunked any fears about mask wearing and child development. The one that did support this fear also looked at children's abilities to recognize inverted faces while wearing masks. Since we are not hanging upside down most of the day, I have not given this study much clout. As a family scientist and parent, I argue that the new executive order to remove mask mandates in public schools and to ban the teaching of critical race theory is not empowering Virginia parents. I know this because I am a Virginia parent too, and I am in no way supported by this new executive order. I have my own fears for my asthmatic child, but I also want to remind everyone that this pandemic is a public health issue and not an individual family issue. I support families in making their own decisions when the decision only impacts their family, but not wearing a mask or pretending that we live in a post-racial society impacts the community, other families, and individuals who have underlying health issues or who are marginalized. Not wearing a mask represents one's failure to understand their role in community and how their individual decisions impact public health. MCPS preaches community. To go against the mask mandate and the teaching of critical race theory is to follow an individualistic, winner-take-all kind of mentality that is not the culture of MCPS. I urge you to follow your mission statement and focus on community, where every child matters. Allowing parents to decide if their child wears a mask or not is not aligned with community mindset or respect for others. To lift the mask mandate or ban critical race theory would be to go against the mission of MCPS and reinforces the the erroneous belief that family decisions are completely removed from the larger community in which
Her time was up, sorry. She couldn't hear you, so I had to tell her.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Joe Walker, followed by Sean Gaynor.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Montgomery County School Board for allowing me to be here tonight to voice my opinion. And I want to apologize for the attack that happened on an individual basis. I want to concern my thoughts, my concerns, and my opinions. As I've discussed, and many of you know me, I've discussed with a lot of parents throughout Montgomery County who have children who have issues, whether they're autistic, whether they're on learning curve, learning disabilities. These masks are a major distraction in classes. I've spoke to a lot of teachers. I've spoke to a lot of principals, a lot of caregivers in the school, whether they're in the nursing department. No, the masks are a major distraction. My name's Joe Walker. I have a daughter in Auburn. Next year, she's going to be going to Auburn Middle School, and she is autistic. She is very high functioning. This mask is a distraction to her. It took a little girl who went from Bellevue, making honor roll. When she went to Auburn, she had to struggle to make her honor roll, but she did because of the distraction of the mask. Concerns tonight, this mask mandate is an atrocity. It's an attack on my child's individual right, whether she wants to wear a mask or not, but I'm her parent. My wife is her parent. We're her grandparents, actually, who've adopted and are raising her. It's my child, it's my choice. I'm not going against your choice to protect your child. Let your child wear your mask. Don't force your beliefs upon us. We have a right to choose what's right for our child. Masks don't work anyhow. They've almost proven it, right? Please consider the trauma, the setbacks, the distraction that this decision has cast upon all Montgomery County Public School students, employees, staff, visitors, each and every one. God's word tells us in 2 Timothy, God didn't give us the spirit of fear, but the spirit of power and sound mind. It's not a sound mind making these choices to cast your choice upon my child or anyone else's child. Let the parents have the right to choose whether their child wears the mask or not. I'm highly against the masks. But tonight, in respect of you all, and you're rolling, I'm wearing my mask.
Thank you.
Yes, and I do apologize again for an individual personal attack. If I have a problem with you personally, I'll come talk to you. I will not attack you in public. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sean Gaynor, followed by Sean Moore.
Sean Gaynor, Montgomery County. Praise God for this opportunity and for your time. Truth is incontrovertible. Panic may resent it. Ignorance may deride it. Malice may distort it. But there it is, Winston Churchill. Governor Wolf of Pennsylvania was caught off camera saying that he will wear his mask on camera for a little political theater. The House Speaker Nancy Pelosi goes to a hair salon to get her hair done maskless amid COVID lockdowns and regulations. My son, living in Pennsylvania, was asked to wear a mask inside his own home while owners scheduled a showing. Did anyone watch the Super Bowl this weekend? Over 75,000 maskless people jumping and screaming and spreading their droplets. The vacillating Rock, a.k.a. Dwayne Johnson, posts videos scolding politicians and others for not wearing or wanting masks, yet he has not a mask. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, also maskless for the second time at a Rams game. The first time he said he was holding his breath. The school children in his county all wore masks to school the very next day. This is the same county that threatened an 82-year-old pastor with jail time for holding church service. J-Lo, LeBron, Ben Affleck, Ellen, the list goes on, all inside of SoFi Stadium when the rule clearly states that any event inside or out that has more than 5,000 people must all wear masks. Last February, Surgeon General said for us to stop buying masks. They do not work. A study was done. 1,600 participants used cloth masks, and it yielded a 97% penetration of particles the size of COVID. Have you looked at the protocol that doctors use when they actually use PPE? They do not touch the mask. An assistant puts it on without touching it. They wear it for a maximum of 2 hours. If they touch it with their hands, they discard it. There are several sizes, and they must be fit to the individual's face. Anthony Fauci told us a year ago that these masks might block a droplet or two, and that they're not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. Then he added that Americans should not be walking around with masks on like they are in China. N95 masks are the best masks we can purchase without going to oxygen tanks and sealed respiratory systems with filters. They are said to block 90 to 95% of particles 0.3 microns or larger. A micron or micrometer is 0.001 millimeters. We have all seen the videos of people blowing smoke through 2 and 3 of these masks. Let's take a look at particle sizes. A respiratory droplet, 5 to 10 microns. Wildfire smoke, 0.4 to 0.7 microns. Coronavirus, 0.1 to 0.5 microns. The back of the box on the N95 mask says, this product is an ear loop mask. The product is not a respirator and will not provide any protection against COVID-19, coronavirus, or any other virus or contaminants. Yet we have people continue to come up here and express how they feel so safe wearing their masks. Safe from what? Should we continue to wear these? We can delve into discussion of the disgusting 80 to 260,000 plus bacteria found on the inside. There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. Nelson Mandela.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sean Moore, followed by Robert Lenko.
Hi, my name is Sean Moore. I live in Blacksburg. I appreciate you all having the open meeting tonight, and so many in attendance of school officials and a good amount of parents and community here. I think that's great because we're representing all of our ideas in this free society, whether it's liberal, Democrat, Republican, third party, another party, whatever it is, that doesn't really concern me. It's just the fact that we do have such a strong sense of free and open democracy where we can all present our ideas. We can have people call in with this technology. And, over the last 2 years, we've had science that says every different kind of science, and now we're getting it all at once, and it's coming from so many different directions. And, it's quite frankly, it's kind of beautiful that we have all these opinions and facts and great research to go about it. So, I commend that effort for everyone that is, continuing to pursue that goal of free and open society. Personally, I do not feel like me being limited, not being allowed to allow my child to choose whether or not to wear a mask. I do not believe that constitutes a free and open society. I do believe it's been kind of a downhill slide ever since then in terms of other mandates. And, right now we have revolution in the world going on because of, the couple of weeks that we were going to flatten the curve. So in Canada, they're having 18-wheelers go flatten the curve, and they're doing it by stepping up in front of the government, and they're refusing. So I hope that we don't have to get that far. And we can, just continue to allow everyone's voice. I do appreciate the students coming in today and reading the mission. And, there was several things in the mission that I feel were contrary to the mask policy. And that would be nurturing positive relationships, continuous growth, the core values of mutual trust and respect and open communication are completely null and void when we can't see someone's face. And also, I do not see the parents listed anywhere in the pie chart diagram on here, where we do have students, teachers, and the curriculum. The parents aren't there at all, and that was brought up by another parent earlier. So I just encourage us to, keep having these open discussions, let everyone be included, let everyone's opinion, including the parents, be considered. And, there's a lot of financial risk, assuming that, we're one out of 7 counties that are going against the state right now. And I know that every one of you are bonded. So that means that if any of these parents have an issue with their children and their health and not being able to, choose to not wear a mask or not, you all might be held liable in civil court. I would hope that it would never get there. We can all just use better judgment and actually choose love and not fear. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Robert Lenko, followed by Jeffrey Wilson.
Hi, I'm Robert Lenko. I live over here in Christiansburg. I have 2 students in your school district, one in the 6th grade and one in kindergarten. My son in kindergarten, he struggles with his speech. He's in speech class. Took the school till December to get him in there. Don't know why. We knew he had a speech problem on day 1. Now he's finally in there, and he's a quick learner. I'd hoped that he would learn from a specialist in this field. Problem is, the specialist can't see what he's doing with his mouth. Last year, I understood. The governor said, we got to wear masks. Everyone's got to wear a mask. So we did it. No one was happy about it. It was uncomfortable, but we put up with it. This year, we got a new governor. He says, it's a parent's choice. Several other districts in this state have agreed. Several other states in this country that you've never seen it coming, they agree. Children are the least likely to die of this virus. For some reason here, we didn't. And my son is not getting the education he needs. His teacher can't understand him. He knows the material. As his dad, I know what he's saying, but she doesn't. So I'm getting report cards home saying he doesn't know. He doesn't know this, he doesn't know that. We're gonna have to send him to summer school. I record him saying these things without a mask on. The teacher says she can't open it, but it's there. It's an obstruction. Dr. Walensky of the CDC, a couple weeks back, said these cloth masks are nothing more than a facial decoration and really protect against nothing. It's not protecting my son from anything, but it is keeping him from learning. Came here tonight to ask you guys to please reconsider these masks so our kids can get the education they deserve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our final speaker tonight is Jeffrey Wilson.
Evening. Name's Jeffrey Wilson. I live in Christiansburg. I have 2 children that go to Christiansburg Middle School and Elementary. Thank you for taking the time tonight. Appreciate it. I don't really have anything else to say as far as what masks can and cannot do. I just have some questions for you and one request when you guys make your decision on the mask policy. The request is when you guys decide either way for masks or against masks, to help with the community and yourselves, is to please be very descriptive in your reason why. So often we just put things into place and don't actually defend them. We just say, masks will stay in place. Great, why? What's the reason behind it? I mean, I have 2 children. My child, older one, came home from school January with COVID. 2 days later, the whole family had COVID. Everyone recovered. Moving forward. Wears his mask all the time in school, so does his little brother. Doesn't make much sense to me. Ask yourselves what the best argument from the other side is. That's what I do when I'm faced with arguments I don't like. What's the best argument from the other side? I talk to people who are terrified of COVID, and I sympathize with them. I talk to people that believe it's a hoax, and I don't sympathize with them. But I understand where they're coming from. I look at the arguments and try to face them. But it seems like when we make mask mandates, we don't face any argument against them. I could cite all the facts of cloth masks and surgical masks, face shields. I just don't understand why we make decisions and don't clarify our positions on why we believe them. If you're unwilling to say why you support something, you have no leg to stand on. I will happily defend why I believe in what I believe, and I'll take in all criticisms and try to clarify my position. That's all I really have to say. Is just please be very clear in whatever direction all of you choose, for whatever you choose, of why you're doing it. Doesn't mean you're right, doesn't mean you're wrong, but it's going to help the parents, it'll help the board, it'll help everyone in this community understand why the decisions are being made. Thank you.
Thank you. So that ends our public address. So next, we have consent items. Are there any items that anyone wishes to pull from the consent? Hearing none, those are approved. Payment of the bills. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Financial summary. Is there a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so now we will move to the business portion of our meeting. First item is the COVID update.
Okay, we have Mr. Knott and Mr. Garrettson here to give an update, and also Dr. Bissell is here as well to give an update. It's up to those three.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Based on the information that we received from board members about the COVID update, we have adjusted how I'm presenting this tonight. If this works, great. If we need more adjustment, please let me know. So in this graph or chart here, actually, you'll see 2 different weeks, January 31st through February 4th, and February 7th through the 11th. We have 903 employees listed there, and the average number of teacher absences per day are listed in the third column. And you'll see for January 31st through the 4th, we averaged 104.5 absences per day. And in February 7 through 11, it was down to 89.4. The average number of teacher absences that were not related to COVID are listed there as well. 82 for the first week and 72 absences for the second week. The next column in the darker gray there is the average number of teacher absences due to COVID per day. And you'll see we went from 22.5 in the first week to last week being 17.4. The average number of teacher positions that were not filled by substitutes in each week is listed there as well. 10.25 in the first week and 10 in the second week. The next column shows our fill rate for each week, the average fill rate for each week, 82.22% and 88.07%. Pre-COVID, our average fill rate was approximately 92%. And you can see the difference there between the pre-COVID and the current fill rate numbers for our substitutes. Do you have any questions for me on this with this data?
Any questions?
Danny, I'll just say, I definitely appreciate this. I mean, yeah, we were kind of kicking around the ideas, and I mean, I hope this didn't take a ton of work because, I mean, I think this was super awesome to see, and thanks for that.
It helps put things in perspective. Looking at the average number of absences, you can see that we're coming down, it seems like. I guess the average number of teacher positions not filled, that's directly related to our fill rate, is it not?
The average number of teachers, that's the number of positions on average for that week that did not get filled, per day that did not get filled. Today, for example, we had 6 positions that were not filled.
Gotcha.
For teachers. Any other questions?
Okay.
I guess one other quick follow-up as far as context goes, just to remind us, the point where we would have issues or we would have to start thinking about things, right? almost as a warning that like, hey, you're starting to get into a range where you're going to have trouble, running stuff. Where is that number on the fill rate? I mean, I can see the pre-COVID fill rate was 92%. We're basically in the last couple of weeks at about 88%, so we're not too far off. But it's hard to know, is it, do you need to get to 80% or 85% or 75? I mean, where's the point where you guys start to get a little worried? Like, so and you don't have to give me an exact number. I'm just trying to get just an idea.
And it's going to be hard to give you an exact number or a close. I mean, I can guess certainly, but it's really a combination of factors that we have to take into consideration. It's how many COVID cases do we have at that time? How many unfilled positions do we have? What is our fill rate? And is it impacting equally across all schools, or is it only impacting one particular school? So if you remember back before winter break, year before last, we went virtual with our secondary students and kept our elementary students in school. And we did that because we had reached that point where we were having multiple schools having multiple absences every day that could not be filled.
Sure.
And that allowed our elementary schools to take advantage of all of our subs while our secondary students were being taught remotely, virtually. So it's very hard to come out and just give you a number because there are so many factors that play into that as we're looking at it. We communicate on a daily basis about our fill rate, about our COVID numbers, on our unfilled vacancies. Are they impacting one particular school or multiple schools? And we know we have certain schools that have higher unfilled rates than other schools do. Sometimes they're just harder to staff. And it would be very difficult for me to actually say to you, it would be 70%, fill rate. It would be very difficult to put a number on it.
Yeah, because I guess at some point it also depends on the number as well. But I mean, just in general, I mean, does anybody else want to take? I mean, if you start seeing, multiple, what are we looking at? 50 absences, then you start to worry, or is it way before then?
I'd say it's maybe even more than that, because if you think about it, we're looking at an average of 10 unfilled positions a day with 20 schools.
Sure.
So if you think about it like that, that's a half of an unfilled position per school.
Sure.
That's really, really good. I mean, I would think we would need to get to, unfilled positions where we're getting to 4 or 5 per school, which would probably equal, that number would probably have to be at 50 or 60 on average. So I think we're a long way from having to do that.
Yeah. There's one more number that I failed to mention, and that's our total number of substitutes. At that time, when we went virtual with our secondary schools, our substitute numbers were very, very low. We were well below 300, right around 250 substitutes. Today, we have 413 substitutes on the books. We added 40 last week. So substitutes has been an area we've been focusing on for recruitment, and we're getting substitutes. I think that's another part of the reason why we're seeing our fill rates improving like they are. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Knott.
So one other piece of information that was requested was, did we have any particular schools that were adversely affected in either week? And certainly on February 5th, we had one school, Christiansburg Middle School. They had a large number of absences that day, but only 6 of those absences were unfilled teaching positions. We had 17 staff members out. 3 of those were related to COVID, 14 were not. And one of the things we have to remember that with our substitutes, when they're subbing in a building, they're not planning for class, so they don't need a planning period. So they can work in another classroom during that time. And so the administration there utilized the subs that they did have, and we had only 5 teachers were paid to cover a class. So there was only 5 class periods that weren't covered by a substitute that day. And in the second week, this last week, we didn't have any schools that had an abnormally large number of absences or unfilled positions in their building that week. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
Good evening, board members. Dr. Meyer, of course, our community. We'll continue to roll through these next few slides as quickly as I can for you. You've seen this type of data for the last several weeks. One change I have made is I've tried to highlight some numbers. If a number is green, it means it's going the direction we want it to go, whether that's up or down. If it's the direction we want, it's green. Otherwise, we'd put it in red if it was going the opposite direction. So for this past week of February 7 to 11, 188 positive cases reported. That number is going down the direction we want it to go, so it's in green. 23 staff members, 165 students. You do have the Montgomery County epi curve here. We do have Dr. Bissell with us this evening. She'll speak more to that, and she has some slides as well, so I'll let the expert speak to that rather than my comments. Our student attendance data, as we've been monitoring for the past several weeks, February 7th to 11th, it was a full week of school. You can see all green numbers, so they're all going the direction we want them to go. Our overall attendance rate for students is up to 93.4 that week. That was up from the last time we shared those numbers with you. Our highest school was at 96.2. Our lowest school was at 88.9, still higher than our lowest at the last time. Again, we exclude Montgomery Central because it's such a small student body that a few absences really impact that percentage. 534 of our secondary student days were reported as remote. That's a decrease, but that's the direction we want to go. So 534 is in green. And ultimately, when we adjust that attendance rate with those remote days, if we just count those as absences, the division is still at 92.4, which is higher than it was last time I shared the information with you. One last slide I have in addition this time speaks to some of the points that are in the media and also have been shared here tonight during public address. We are aware of Senate Bill 739 being approved in the legislature. It does permit masks in schools to be a parental decision, and that language is very clear. As we speak to our attorney about it, he's very definitive too that the language is very clear. It does still require a governor's signature. When we last checked on that today, the governor had made some recommendations and then back to the legislature. One of the recommendations is that the governor would recommend that would go in place by March 1st. Again, not quite yet signed into law, but every indication we have indicates that it's going that direction. The health department has shared their epi curves with us and have commented that they're essentially the same in locations that have masking optional or that require masks. I'm sure Dr. Bissell will speak more to that and more eloquently to that. The federal mask requirement to mask on school buses, again, those are considered public transportation, so there's a federal guideline there. That is set to expire in March. I believe it's March 18th. We have no knowledge whether that would be extended or not. We just don't know about that. Even our neighboring school divisions who have decided to be mask optional are still requiring masks on school buses as part of the federal guidelines. There has been some discussion about VDH changing the way they report some of their cases, case reporting. That certainly could have an impact on the way school divisions report, specifically what we do with our dashboards in the school divisions. And kind of lastly for me, DOLE, the Department of Labor and Industry, Danny works closer with them than I do, but DOLE is scheduled to meet on Wednesday, tomorrow. There is a potential impact there on masking guidelines for employees. Again, our neighboring school divisions who have made masks optional for students are still required to have employees in masks. That change could potentially happen based at a meeting tomorrow with the Department of Labor and Industry because, Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, if you employ more than 100 employees, then you have to require them to mask. And again, that could potentially change. This slide, like so many things with COVID, no one has a crystal ball, but these are the things that we're kind of paying attention to and watching closely that we would like to share with the board this evening. Dr. Bissell will speak next, and I know she has some slides, but are there any questions for me before Ms. Drake changes the slideshows?
And I'll say, thanks, Mr. Garrettson, that, these things are going to approach us very quickly, and any guidance that the board can give us this evening as to how they would like for us to go moving forward would be appreciated. because things will probably happen prior to the next school board meeting. It's very, very, very likely. So, but first, Dr. Bissell.
Good evening. Thank you again for having me. Here we are, still COVID, right? Okay, so as Mr. Garrettson said, I have our epi curves. This is for the entire district. So the entire district cases are down about 38% this week. Last week, they were down about 25%. This is Montgomery County, same thing. Last week, they were down about 30%. This week, they are down about 35% as well. I'm going through the entire district. Radford City is also down. Floyd County is down. Giles County is down. Pulaski County is down. And I will tell you that all of them have gone to masking optional for students. This is our school-age children. They are also coming down as we expect. They are down about 28%. Last week, they were down about 20%. This is our college kids. We saw a spike the week the college kids came back. That was not unexpected. And then the cases are coming down pretty precipitously as well. I thought I had one other slide, but anyway, the curve that shows everything on one, which is our K through 12, our community and our college kids, pretty much shows, like we've said, that our K through 12 cases track our community spread. This is our current hospitalizations. This is as of today, 1,669, according to the Virginia Healthcare and Hospital Association. On January 12th, it peaked at 3,900 cases. And that was kind of Delta rolling into Omicron. This shows just kind of the rolling trend, and you can see where it's ebbed and flowed, the peaks and valleys with each variant. What I'd like to point out is the blue is cases. Obviously, cases are higher than they were with any variant hospitalizations, and as we've talked about before, when you have such a highly transmissible variant, more people will be hospitalized. But if you look at the two, the brownish and then the kind of mauve color, those are your ventilator and ICU patients. Even though the proportion of hospitalizations has gone up, the ICU and ventilator patients hasn't gone up significantly, and that kind of suggests what everyone else has seen, that overall this is not as severe of a variant as the Delta one and the previous B117 that we had last winter. This is Ballad Health to our south. This is today's data, 362. They peaked on February 7th at 454. If you notice, their ICU is at 61. They peaked at 94. Their ventilators are at 40. They peaked at 69. Last winter, they were closer to 500 hospitalizations. Their ICU patients were over 100, and their ventilator patients were over 90. So again, kind of fits what we've talked about, that this one is not of the same severity. This is Virginia as a whole. As you can see, we peaked in early to mid-January, and these are daily cases, and they're going to go up and down a little bit over the weekends because there's not as much reporting on the weekends, but you can see that yellow line is the overall trend. And then if you look at it through the entire pandemic, if you go back to September of 2020, there was barely a bump in the state. I will say that's when we had the original Wuhan variant. Here in the district, if I showed you those epi curves again, we did have significant bumps from our college students. If you go to the December through March period, that's when the UK variant, the B117, hit us. And then we got a little bit of a reprieve, and then Delta hit us in the fall, and then we rolled right into Omicron. But you can see the the case numbers, much more significant numbers with Omicron. And again, please remember that the entire pandemic, we have underdocumented cases significantly. This is going to be our hospitalizations, I believe, right? Or I'm sorry, this is our deaths. I did the hospitalizations. So this is for the entire pandemic. You can certainly see that around March of 2021 is, our deaths are a lagging indicator. So while the cases kind of peaked December, January, our deaths kind of spiked up around the March timeframe. And the same thing happened. We did have an increase in our deaths with Delta, and then we did have an increase in deaths with Omicron just by sheer numbers. But again, if you go back to the sheer number of cases, the proportion of deaths compared to the number of cases, it's not the same proportion. This is statewide. This is our deaths broken down by age group. We've had 49 deaths in people less than 25 years old throughout the pandemic. We have 2.53 million people under the age of 25 in the state. So that's a 0.002% death rate. And I will say every death is tragic. I don't mean at all to minimize any death, but 0 deaths is just not, that's not possible. That's not possible from an infectious disease. So here we break it down by vaccination status. The yellow is unvaccinated, the light blue is partially vaccinated, and then the darker blue is fully vaccinated. And fully vaccinated by definition is the 2 shots. It doesn't include all the boosters. So this is our cases. You can see the majority of cases are unvaccinated still. However, we do see a fair number of cases in those who are partially and fully vaccinated. This is going to be our hospitalizations, again, very similar to the curve I showed you not too long ago. Again, you do see a bump in all of them. So we do see hospitalizations in our vaccinated and partially vaccinated. And then this is our rate of death in people according to vaccination status. So this is tonight's big topic, masking. I'm just going to present curves. This does not control for vaccination. It doesn't control for other mitigations, such as distancing, such as people not going out or traveling, minimizing time indoors. It also does not account for testing. There are variations because of accessibility. There are variations about who seeks testing and who can get access to testing. And as I said, we know that there are far more cases than we've ever documented. But I want you to look at the general trends and the general shapes of the curves. That's the important thing from an epidemiologic standpoint. So the blue is states that have mandated masks. The yellow is states that have not mandated masks. And 2 things you see. The general curve is pretty much identical, and they're pretty much right on top of each other. There's not like one curve is significantly higher than the other curve. Here is new cases, and this is adjusted per 1 million population. Again, this is states with mask mandates versus states with no mask mandates in the black versus the blue. A couple of states that are really popular for people to talk about. This is the total trend in cases in Texas. Let me get my Texas population up here. Texas has a population of 29 million, so this is cumulative cases. So you're up over 6 million cases cumulatively in Texas from the start of the pandemic. I want you to just look at the curve and the shape of the curve. This is California. California's population is more than Texas. It's 39.5 million, but again, the shape of the curve is pretty much identical. California reinstituted a statewide mask mandate on December 15th, and you can see it did not change the surge from Omicron cases. This is California versus Arizona. This is, again, not absolute cases. This is cases per million. Again, California with the mask mandate, Arizona without the mask mandate. And you can see that the general shape of the curves, and they overlap, essentially. This, I spoke last time. This is Israel. I think the thing to comment about Israel, that they are the most highly vaccinated country, they are the most highly boosted country, and they have also had the strictest mitigation, including masking. And you can see that the top is their confirmed cases, the second one is their deaths, but their confirmed cases, you can see that the Omicron surge, they have not escaped the Omicron surge. This looks at the different types of masks in mandates, and this is new cases per 100,000 population. So if you look at Germany with the mask mandates, and then they changed to a surgical mask mandate, and then you look at Bavaria, went to an N95 mask mandate. And again, if you look at the shapes of the curve and the overlay, there really is no difference there. This is a study from University of Michigan about Michigan schools. This is a presentation that the health department in Michigan did in October of 2021. And you'll see that on the red up top, few mask rules, more cases compared to partial mask rules or masking mandates. However, if you fast forward 2 months, this is the curve from December, and you can see that all of them are basically overlaying each other, and they're all dropping with the drop from the Omicron surge. I do want to say that I deliberately left the slide like this, and I do see that it remains important to mask up in indoor settings, schools and otherwise, to prevent transmission. I am going to comment here that I disagree with this. This is a talking point. Public health has not been super great about acknowledging maybe when things aren't working as well as what we expected that they were working. The data is far from irrefutable that we've seen any benefit to the masking. And I admit my position changed. And the reason my position changed was in the beginning, all of the data came out of places that had implemented masking. And I knew that the data showed us the adverse effects of our children not being in school. And we had to get our children back into school as quickly as we could. And all of the data showing low transmission rates in schools were in schools that chose to mask. And so it made sense. Let's get them masked. That's a trade-off that we can do. That's a trade-off we can accept to get our children back into school. Over time, however, we had more of a controlled study. There were states that decided not to mask or to end masking mandates. And so now we have the data that shows us where things have gone. I will tell you, I think everyone knows, I cover 21 school districts, and I think Mr. Garrettson said, several of my school districts that I am covering in Southwest, they did make masks optional on January 24th when the governor first said that they could go with masking optional. And again, the curves are no different. They all surged and they all came down, consistent with what we're seeing across the board with Omicron. There was no change that we all of a sudden saw an exponential increase in cases in our schools. So just, I have one more slide. Again, mandated versus optional school masking, and just look at the shape of the curve and look at the curves basically overlay. So what I want to say is, we're now 2 years into this. This is no longer March of 2020. We no longer have naive immune systems, and we have a vaccine. We have multiple vaccines. We have to accept that COVID-0 is not going to happen. We are not going to eradicate COVID. All indications are that it will be regional and seasonal spread like other respiratory viruses. So we have to shift our strategy, and public health is not real good at doing that. We are not real nimble at doing that, but we really do have to shift our strategy, and we have to start addressing COVID and treating COVID like we do other respiratory communicable diseases. Certainly the most important things are to stay home when we're sick, hand hygiene, respiratory etiquette. Those are all things that we all needed to be reminded of, and hopefully we will take those away from this beyond COVID. But as I've kind of been saying for the last several months now, we really need to shift to individual risk assessments and family risk assessments and individual risk tolerance and family risk tolerance. I often talk about, conflating science and policy, and science is the unbiased facts. And the certainties and the uncertainties of that data are made known, and the assumptions that lead to the interpretation of that data are made known. Everyone has bias, even the people performing studies. You cannot 100% control. There are always going to be confounding variables. Peer review is one of the ways that when we look at studies, a lot of people weigh in on that, and we try to kind of balance all of that out. But with preprints hitting the media, preprints hitting the internet, those are not peer-reviewed studies. And there's a lot of stuff that gets circulated with just incorrect interpretations, misinformation, and it's hard to take it back once it gets out there, unfortunately. Policy, that puts in opinions. That puts in a value system because it's a risk-benefit analysis and it's a measure of trade-offs. So by definition, there are going to be those trade-offs. But one thing we have to accept is that there is no zero risk tolerance. We can't have zero risk or zero risk tolerance. So I absolutely hate how divisive and how nasty this whole thing has become. I have tried to remain as open as possible, and I've tried to do what I've tried to guide our school systems in what I thought was the best for our kids, to keep our kids in school. And my opinions have shifted, and looking at the curves makes a big difference for me. I think civility and respect are lacking, and we really need to get that back. I think we need to do individual risk assessments, individual risk tolerance, and whether it's vaccination, it needs to inform our behaviors. And then masking, we need to look at, certainly masks, we know cloth masks, the CDC, several studies, the Bangladesh study showed us that cloth masks really don't help. We knew that even pre-COVID. Certainly the surgical masks, if you're not in tuck, N95s, they are going to present some more filtration, but we really need to look at more individual protection now. And I think, I've said before, the virus is going to virus. We need to learn to live with it. We need to learn to, adjust our behavior and adapt our behavior to how we can live with this virus and what our risk tolerance is. So that's all I have. I'm happy to take questions, maybe.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, I definitely had a question in there. Thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it. And all the slides were super helpful. One of the things that I've been focusing a lot on is what happens next, right? Like what happens after the masks come off, and are we ready for that? And what changes, if anything, we need to consider for that. And so, in my mind, one of the things that I feel like we should start to advocate more for, once we stop mandating, is advocating for vaccinations, advocating for testing, right? And we do that, and I'd like to see more of it, right? And I assume that you would agree with that. But then when it comes to the masking, it still feels like to me that it should be something that we should encourage in cases where people feel the need, right?
Absolutely.
If they are anxious, if they have environments, folks at home, if they're in like more crowded situations and they just want some personal protection. But I guess, but then you see all the slides and all the things that makes it feel like maybe masks aren't effective. And certainly folks who have been, that guy back there, folks who come out here and talk about it. So I think it would be helpful for all of us just to hear you say, are masks not effective, or are mask mandates not effective? Because there's a big difference.
I think there is a big difference. And I will say, when you look at mask mandates, you have to factor in compliance. You have to factor in what kind of a mask, and that's not factored in here. So I think mask mandates are not effective. I do think masks have some value, depending on who wears them and how they wear them and what kind of mask. And I absolutely agree. Okay. I think we need to empower people. If they feel more comfortable because that child has conditions, because family members have conditions, absolutely. Let those children continue to wear those masks. I don't think there should be bullying either way. There should be no judgment or bullying whether someone chooses to wear a mask or not chooses to wear a mask. Again, we need to get the civility back. Everyone has taken this pandemic in different ways. There are different levels of anxiety. There are different levels of fear, and it runs the gamut. And we really need to come back to the middle. I think they are a tool. A lot of people want to continue using them. I do think they are effective. I think it's the mandates, because you have to look at those other things when you're looking at an overall universal masking. And that's why the shift to individual assessments, individual risk tolerance, individual behaviors, individual protection.
Great, thank you for that.
So I have just a quick question on just because I'm a little curious on the science on this. As you said, there's a lot of different things that you probably need to control for, and I'm sure there's researchers out there that are looking at the data now, and I'm sure there's studies that'll come out in the future on this. But assuming that that's even, that they will agree with this even after controlling for other things. One question I have, I just want to be clear that it seems to me that what these graphs are showing is that mask mandates are not effective to necessarily slow down community spread over time, right? None of these charts seem to look at what happens within the school building. So if you have a mask mandate in school buildings, whether or not that makes a difference or not, does it?
These are
Or is
mask
it-
mandates in the schools.
Okay.
So this is, I know I had,
It's the first one you had up.
anyway, this is the Michigan study. And so these are schools, the red line is those that don't have any mask mandates, and the blue line is those with. And this was October of 21. And one of the things we don't do well either, so if we would have ended looking at this data here, we would have come to a different conclusion that if we continued to look at the data here in December, and you see that at this point.
So is that a reflection on the different variants, or is it a reflection on, I guess that's what we don't really know yet, right? What caused those, because it sure seems that at first it is effective in the building, and then now with Omicron, maybe it's not. And I guess until you control for things like the types of masks that people are wearing and things like that, you don't really know, right?
Well, so two things. I think, and that's the reason I said, look at the shapes of the curve, right? I think the shapes of the curves do help you control for all those other things, right? To some degree, not
Sure,
perfectly,
sure.
but the shape of the curve and the fact that they're almost an exact overlay. The other thing with the schools, we have known it, we've documented it, it's been well documented. Cases in schools follow community transmission. Transmission overwhelmingly happens at home and at other social events. Does transmission happen in schools? Certainly it does. But it overwhelmingly happens outside of school, and I think that's what you're seeing. And that's what they noted here. So, right here, they're saying districts with complete or partial mask mandates have lower case rates with slower increases. But then if you look at the data here, it now basically reflects community spread. As community transmission increases, your cases are going to increase, and the differences become washed out by transmission.
All right, so a follow-up question, I guess, on vaccinations. So, I guess two questions. So, when it comes, looking at the other, the curves that you showed earlier where, hospitalizations, ventilators, deaths went up, they just didn't go up as much.
Correct.
I can make sense of that. So I guess where are you, I guess, on vaccinations, getting boosted, things like that? Is that still something that, how much effort should we in public health and us as your partners put into that?
So in public health, we are always going to encourage vaccination. I mean, we have vaccinations. They're safe, they're low risk, they're not zero risk. We're always going to advocate for vaccination over infection. That's just a hands down thing. But it comes back to the risk assessment. Our children overall are, so older people, people with immunocompromising conditions, hands down, both of the primary series, boost them. Immunocompromised people, they're even fourth doses because they just can't mount an immune response. When you get to younger people who are otherwise healthy, you have to start weighing their risk of COVID versus their risk of a vaccine, and it's not 100% either way. Both are low risk, but not zero risk. And so, that's where you have to have that conversation. I think, personally, going about this, just vaccinate and boost everybody, I don't think that has the nuance that people need. I think there are a lot of people out there who don't trust the mRNA vaccines. There are some different type vaccines in the pipeline, so to speak, that are awaiting authorization from the FDA. There is one that's a protein subunit vaccine called Novavax. That's applied for FDA approval or authorization. There's another one called Covaxin, which is an inactivated whole virion vaccine. And that's made on the same platform as the inactivated polio vaccine. And they're seeking approval for ages 2 to 18. So that would be for a lot of our children. And I think you probably know Pfizer's kind of been put on hold for the under 5s, which is that shows us that the system works and that we don't have that data yet. So we're not going to rush it, despite the fact that we really want it. And I know there are parents who really want those under 5s vaccinated. But again, it comes down to that, let's wait until we can really look at the data and understand the data. So I think that will help us with some people who may not want to get the mRNA vaccines. Certainly the mRNA vaccines, The spacing, the Pfizer's 21 days, the Moderna's 28 days. And when they first came out, there were some countries that intentionally spaced them further apart because they wanted to get more first doses into people. And their data actually showed less side effects and better immune response. And if you look at public health precedent, that's kind of what we've seen. 21 days is really, really a short interval. And there's actually kind of rumbling now that the CDC is going to increase that interval between the first and the second doses to 8 weeks or more. And certainly, I think everyone knows the myocarditis issue with our adolescent and young adult males. Again, it's low risk, but it's not no risk. And so that has to be a conversation because you have a population that is low risk from COVID, and they have low risk from the vaccine. I absolutely advocate primary vaccination if they haven't been infected already. Again, I don't endorse infection. I don't say go out and get infected, don't have COVID parties, but we have to acknowledge if they have had COVID, they do have some immunity from that. And that's where we need some flexibility with vaccination as well. But, a young, healthy adolescent or a young adult male that's been primarily vaccinated, the booster may or may not be a good idea. That's a decision for that family to make in collaboration with that person's physician. And it's not going to be the same answer for everybody. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You have to look at the risk and understand, what you're trying to do.
All right, thank you.
I got one more question. Thanks for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. This is very helpful. So, again, looking ahead, trying to figure out, how we're going to do this. I've been obsessing over the new VTH guidelines that came out, trying to figure out how our stuff matches up to it and what we need to do. Been driving Mr. Garrettson crazy and Dr. Meyer a little bit too, probably. But the one piece that I still can't get my head around, and I'd appreciate any insights you have, Mr. Garrettson even, is this bit that speaks to kids or persons who have been exposed to COVID but who aren't vaccinated. And so the guidance speaks to specifically stay at home for 5 days, get tested on day 5. A person can end their quarantine if they have no symptoms, and they can wear the mask through day 10. But then you factor all that into our school systems, and we're not really sure if we even know who has it because we're not really contact tracing. We don't know who has vaccines or not. And now we're going to get rid of a mask mandate, right? So how do we meet that guidance when all three of those factors are kind of working against us right now?
It is confusing. I will say that statement by the Council for State and Territorial Epidemiologists and Public Health and VDH basically acknowledges we can't contact trace every case. And so that is that sign that we are shifting more towards not case investigating and contact tracing. Jason Deese, my epidemiologist, works very closely with Mr. Garrettson, with Ms. Hager, and we will continue to do that to navigate it and keep the kids in school as much as possible. We have tests to stay. You all have rapid tests. And so masking aside, we can still do those tests to keep the kids in school if they've been exposed. Remember, overwhelmingly, the number of kids that are exposed that we had previously been quarantining, the number that actually got COVID was extremely small. We know all along that we've been way over quarantining during this pandemic. So, the most important thing here is that the kids that are sick stay home, the kids that are positive stay home. And then we go from there. And I know, the same thing comes with that day 6 through 10 in your positives. We're working with them too. There is, we can look at symptom resolution, and we've worked very closely. Montgomery County's been extremely successful. Our school districts in New River Valley have been extremely successful. So there's that mutual trust there, and we're helping each other navigate because there are no easy answers. But I think my team and your team have done a pretty darn good job.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, for me, it's just on day 6 when a kid shows up at the front door and they don't have their mask on, We know that they're out for COVID. But what are we doing, right? Because we don't know if they're vaccinated or not. And so are we going to assume they're not and make a mask? Are we going to just not worry about it and not follow the guidelines? I mean,
Well, the guidelines are not a rule. The guidelines are suggestions. So you don't have to do that. I will tell you that what we've been saying and what we've done, again, the optional masking is not new in most of the localities that I'm covering. You know, what we've been doing on that day 6 to 10 is, are they symptomatic? If they are symptomatic, they need to stay home. They need to stay home. If their symptoms are totally resolved, they are not symptomatic, you know, we try to encourage that they continue to mask according with the guidelines, but some of them absolutely refuse, and then it is up to the school. You know, personally, we've encouraged them that we need to try and bring the level down. It's such a divisive issue, and what we're getting for being so divisive, I don't know that it's worth that.
Are there any more questions?
Ms. Franklin, if nobody has any further discussion, I would like to make a comment, if I could, please.
Sure.
So first of all, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Knott and Mr. Garretson so much for your presentation for the COVID update and the COVID update for the past 2 years. I know it's been a lot of hard work, and just want you to know how much we appreciate it. And again, I want to thank you, Dr. Bissell, for your time tonight. I know it's precious. And thank you for guiding us and leading us. You're the expert. That's why we look to you. So thank you for providing us the information and especially the facts. So with that, I would like to make a motion that the board vote. And I would like to direct the administration to follow Virginia State Code 22.1-2.1 if it is amended by the Virginia General Assembly and the governor. The school board further directs the superintendent to coordinate a plan to follow adjustments to the code section and to develop a plan for implementation.
Second.
So there has been a motion and a second. Right. You can give it to go up. I can't see it from here. It is up as it was stated. Okay. Motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Yeah, so I do want to say that I think when it comes, you know, this has become a divisive issue, and there's still quite a bit of misinformation going around there. And
into your mic, he can't hear.
oh, okay, sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. There's been a lot of misinformation going around, and you know, this idea that, you know, we listen to one governor and not the other is simply false. I have engaged in some of the people who have asked me questions about that, but suffice to say that, you know, that the legal advice that we've gotten basically I think is sound on that type of a thing. When Governor Northam had when he issued executive orders, there was not state law about the things that he was issuing orders on. Then state law got passed about things, and then Governor Youngkin came through with executive orders that, at least to some interpretation, or you could even say most legal interpretations that I've seen and read, put into question whether or not those things would be legal. The correct way to do things is to do things through the General Assembly. So I have no interest in, you know, in taking a fight to the state and not following state law on something. So on this one, I think I'll be voting yes, because I think it's in the interest of our county to be in compliance with state law. And I do think that, you know, there's definitely a political element to this, unfortunately. I've said all along that, you know, I think last summer I wrote up a whole thing on my Facebook page about getting rid of masks and looking at metrics. Linwood, you've been asking about those, and some parents have been asking about them. and then we got hit by Delta, and before we could even get through Delta, then we got hit by Omicron, and now we're seeing it come down, within a few weeks of when Dr. Bissell said that it would. So, I've said all along and tried to encourage people to just hang in there, and we'll get there, soon enough. We don't want to do it too soon. I think at this point our hand is being forced. I think some of it's political. I think some of it is backed by some science. So, hopefully by the time this goes into effect in March, just extrapolating the curve, I think we'll be in a pretty good place. I hope so. That's my take on it. I do think at some point in this discussion we do need to talk about some of the other things that we may want to do or not do for the benefit of our public. So, but I'll let others join the discussion.
Yeah, the only thing that I'll add to that, certainly, at this point, there's not much point arguing over, the data or the facts, right? Everybody's got their sides, and they're pretty well dug in. As a parent, I definitely didn't like the change last year, mid-year. Whether you agree with it or not, is a change in the middle of the year is tough, right? Folks are going to have to adjust to that. But at the end of the day, I think what our district needs more so than anything is unity. I think having a goal to shoot for, where folks kind of know when a change is going to happen. Folks can get ready if they need to. I agree with Mark. There's a couple other things I like to talk about there to make sure that we're ready. But I do think at this point, we need to all try to get in the same direction and see how it goes. So.
Anybody else?
Can we do a roll call?
Is there anybody else who has anything else they want to say? Okay, so.
I did want to say one more thing if nobody else had anything to say on this. So if as expected, effective March 1st or whenever the governor signs the bill, we no longer have a mask mandate in place, I do think that we should take action before then to make higher quality masks available to staff and students who would like them and who might really benefit from them. And I know that Tommy, we've talked about this before. I know that we've done at least an initial buy of some KN95s. At least on some of those, I think I've gotten some not so great reviews on the quality and whatnot. But if that's something that would please the board, I think that might be a good thing to do our best to make some quality masks available to our people.
Yeah, we can make our best efforts.
Microphone, Mark. You put the mic to you.
Oh.
Go out there, can hear you.
We're going to have to, we can make our best effort off of that.
Okay, so not to prolong things, I agree with just about everything that Mark and Linwood have said. For me, this is not a political issue. This is about safety and the law. The legislators said you wear a mask. Now they're going to say it's your option whether you do or not. And I'm going to follow the law. Whether I agree with it or not, the data is changing to show this is where things are. Is it a little bewildering? As Dr. Bissell said, all of a sudden things flipped, but hearing tonight that studies were done on this side, not necessarily looking at this side of things, and once we now have that data, we can see, what folks are saying about masked or unmasked. I hope this will bring back that civility, and that we will not have folks judging other folks for whatever choice they want to make. It's their choice what they want to make. So, with that said, let's do a roll call vote.
Of course. Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I would like to make the next motion to direct the administration to follow the guidance from the Virginia Department of Labor and Industry related to wearing of face masks by employees.
Second.
So there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion?
The only comment that I have on that one, and this is purely just practical, is, we don't have specific dates available to us in terms of when any of this is going to happen, right? And so if I ignore dates just for a second and, all the arguments we've had for and against, it's literally just a practical discussion. It seems like it would make sense to me to give some period of time after the students unmask and then see how things go before we also then go unmask all of our staff.
We have a considerable number of percentage of staff vaccinated. Considerable.
Independent of that, it feels like a science experiment to me. We're gonna, our job is to keep our schools open, right? Can't do that with increased COVID spread with our teachers more exposed. So, I'm not trying to argue the mechanics of it. It's just seems like a reasonable, if we want to keep our doors open, we might want to kind of monitor just for a little bit before we go all in. That's my only thought on this.
Yeah, thanks. The timing will be important because it's very possible that the Department of Labor, they meet tomorrow and they may tell us that our employees do not have to wear a mask immediately. So it would be a situation, and I don't think that the process at the General Assembly will go as fast for students. So we may be in a situation where employees can take the mask off prior to the students. So I will need guidance as to what do you want me to do there.
And I think I would agree with Linwood. I think that, again, I keep saying that this thing's been politicized. I keep looking to the CDC, and I think I've done that under both administrations because that represents the best and widest recommendations from scientists and researchers that we have. Even the VDH gets controlled, at the state level, things even get controlled politically sometimes. And I understand the presentation that Dr. Bissell gave, and it makes sense scientifically with Omicron as it relates to community spread. But as it relates to building spread, I don't think that data really tells us much. And if anything, I think it might tell us the opposite from what little I've seen. And you look at what happened, when Radford opted to go optional, and then they had to shut down for a few days. So I think that risk is there. And I also think with this new information too, that we might be in a situation where staff would be unmasked, but students would continue to have to. I don't think that's good. And I would, the motion as it is stated here, I don't think I can support that. I think I'd like to at least wait until we give students the option, and I agree with Linwood. If our goal is to try to keep the buildings open, it is within our right to require masking of staff. And it's not something I'm interested in doing for very long, but I do think going maybe an extra couple of weeks on that would be prudent.
So yeah, we need some clarification in the motion to either do it immediately, or it sounds like wait until the students. So how would that work there, Brenda?
Okay, so, Ms. Graham made the motion. So are you willing to have a friendly amendment?
Either immediately or when?
I would like to do immediate once we hear from the Department of Labor.
So to keep the motion the same, you're not willing to?
I agree with Ms. Graham because I think we've got all kinds of businesses that are.
So you're not willing to do an amendment to your motion?
I did make an amendment to my motion.
Can you write that? I think Ms. Graham
So
said
isn't it the
an
same?
immediate.
The
An
same
immediate.
thing? If they change it, then it's immediate anyway, right?
No, we would still, with this situation, the employer still has a choice in whether the mask mandate stays in place for employees or not. This is,
Okay.
yeah, it's a little different. They're telling us to do it, but once they tell us not to do it, it's still the right of the employer to require this.
Okay, so we have two things going here.
No.
We have two things going here. We have Mr. Chewbacca in Linwood.
Hi there.
Wanting to amend the amendment to keep it in place for a couple more weeks. And you said you would not accept that as a friendly motion.
No, I would amend it to say immediate. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but that's different from what they were saying.
Yeah, that's not what
So
they're,
you're saying you're not going to accept that, but you want to amend your motion to say immediately.
Correct.
So there was a second, I think, by Ms. Pardon.
Yes, Ms. Franklin, and I do agree to second Ms. Graham's new amendment to the motion.
Okay. So there is a new motion that it be implemented immediately. Any discussion on that? I think we've already said that there are folks who disagree. Okay, so we're going to call for the vote.
Ms. Bond?
yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
No.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Oh, I apologize. Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
No.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
And I'd like to make a third motion. Upon the expiration of federal guidelines regarding the wearing of face coverings on public transportation that would affect our school buses, MCPS will consult state law regarding the wearing of face coverings on school property as it relates to face masks worn by students and staff on school buses.
Second.
So there is a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing
This
none.
was, I guess I don't quite get does this just cover the school buses? I don't understand the part.
Right,
where
'cause it's a
covering on
federal-
school property as it relates to.
Yeah, this is dealing with school buses. That
Is a federal,
it's federal mandate. And that mandate runs out March 18th, I believe.
correct.
And so, there's some talk that will run out and be done at that point.
Right, back in December, they extended it to March 18th, and as of today, they still have not extended it past March 18th.
So there is a motion. We have a roll call.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thanks for your guidance.
I have a question about, also what about, I'm not sure if any of these motions cover visitors and our other buildings and when we're dealing with non-students and with, we covered staff and we covered students, but do we need to be explicit about visitors?
School board meetings.
School board in our meetings, yeah.
That's a good point.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we take masks off once we're at the ability to for all our school board meetings, school board buildings, for visitors, for staff, for everybody, and it's their choice if they want to wear a mask or not.
Is there
a specific time?
Can we talk about
If I may-
on that?
With everything else.
Ms. Bond, if I may.
Yeah.
That visitors will follow the same guidelines as it relates to staff when it
Right.
comes to the wearing of face coverings on school property. Does that sound like an accurate reflection of what you wanted?
Can you include, because I think we want to include something about just the building itself, like our school board buildings?
Yeah, school
And
property.
offices, are you considering that it's the same?
Yeah, school property is school property.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah. So, yeah, it would definitely help if this was done the same time as staff.
Yeah, I
Right.
agree.
Could you
Okay.
type that up?
Well, I guess I would say, sorry, are we in discussion yet?
Yes.
I mean, for me, again, I think it's a bad precedent.
Mark, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
We didn't have a second on that.
Well, yeah, can we write it up first so we can see it?
Show it on the screen until there's a second.
Okay, second.
Okay.
Again, I just think it's a bad precedent where students are required to mask and staff and visitors are not. So I would support a motion where the timing was aligned with students, not with the staff.
I could support that.
Can we make a friendly amendment on that one?
I'm fine with that.
Jamie made the motion.
So when our staff, it's just like I said, it's likely staff will come off before students, but visitors will still be required until students can not wear theirs.
Correct.
I'm good with that. Jamie?
Me too.
Okay.
Okay.
Could you modify it again so we can look at it? Thank you.
You do, it's gonna show the motion is not passing, that's just part of the system. And you can see the change from staff to students.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Brenda, could you talk a little louder? Sorry.
You'll see the not present vote is just a process of the system, right? When we change it after we hit save, that's what happens. You'll see that the word staff was changed to students. Visitors will follow the same guidelines as it relates to students when it comes to the wearing of masks on school property.
Okay, and then Jamie, I'm sorry to complicate this. Jamie had also mentioned something about schools and school board meetings.
So
Is that going to be separate?
School property
She said
covers.
that would just be required, I mean, school
This is
property.
school
period.
property.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Well, I didn't know if that would be the same when we go to having our meetings in the government building. So would that, is it still considered a school?
It
Because
is not. So you would have noticed, I know we've only had one meeting there, but people in the public were not required to wear masks because we have to follow the government-centered guidelines about masking. We can't control their building.
Gotcha.
We can't control their room. So you only have authority to control school property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so is everyone okay with the motion? Let's have a roll call vote.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, well, folks, I think we've got just about everything covered. Is there any other motion? If not, we will move on. And next will be strategic planning, mental health update.
So we have Ms. May and Mr. Garrison here to provide an update on the mental health work as it relates to our strategic plan. And we are updating you at least once a month on our strategic plan and where we are in the different areas. And mental health is a very important piece to that strategic plan. So,
Yep,
Ally?
absolutely. Thank you. All right, so here's your update for the mental health portion of the strategic plan. You'll see here, when we go through the action steps, we're going to define them as either in the planning stage, implemented stage, or completed stage. The first step listed here, you can see that we have added a mental health awareness module for our annual training for our staff. Secondary students were provided a presentation on their mental health supports within their school building. We continue to offer youth mental health first aid to staff and also community members. Say It Out Loud training has been scheduled with secondary school counselors to happen in January. We also just wrapped up our social emotional screener last week. We were actually able to screen over 4,000 students this go around, and so that was really great to see. We continue to have school-based services with NRVCS and National Counseling Group for this particular action step. For this one, this has been implemented. We had presentations at all secondary schools during the month of October. This is something that, again, will continue through the years. It's an important step that we see happen every year. We want to also provide the training and awareness. We're going to have some upcoming mental health awareness months. School counselors are going to help do age-appropriate programming within their school buildings. We also want to get the students involved, so student leaders within certain clubs are going to help take part in planning those events. So this one's still in works. We are also working on a website. We want to update the MCPS website to have a mental health component. We want to be able to provide resources for all stakeholders, including staff, students, families. We are looking at other divisions' websites and kind of seeing how we can make ours even better. We're hoping to have that done and presented to you guys by the end of April. We also have a bunch of mental health related materials that we have been providing to stakeholders throughout the school year through Peach Jar and utilization of our social media. One area that we're still working on is making sure that we keep our principals updated with up-to-date mental health facts and articles, and I know that Mr. Garrison just shared one today with our principals. So we're really excited to see where this can go. I think a lot of the conversation tonight has been about rebuilding community, being kind, and getting on the same page, and this is a great action step to align with that. If there are any questions, I think that was the last one. Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, so I have one. So with the effects of COVID, are there things that are being put in place or discussions to help our students, our staff, our community understand the effect that that has had on them and how to cope and how to be resilient in coming back?
I know that that's been spoken about a lot, and I can't speak to Danny, but I know Mr. Garrison can speak to more specific things. You don't need this.
I would just share that we did have a couple presentations with our principals groups about building resiliency in your school, ways to incorporate that, ways to encourage that, not only in your students, but also in your staff, just in your day-to-day work. As Natalie shared on one of our slides, we just finished our social emotional screener, I believe, last Friday. So we're still beginning to really crunch that number. But right away, based on, of course, we rolled the program out last year during hybrid time and got a much smaller response rate. This year we had, as she said, I believe 4,000. We see those numbers. We've got more students involved, and we also have identified more needs based on student responses. One of the greatest values in that instrument for us, many times we'll talk about students and we'll say at risk, and we're looking at grades, attendance, discipline. We've got lots of other needs and lots of other risks in kids who appear on the outside to be doing perfectly well. Their grades are good, they're coming to school. So we really see this as an important tool for helping identify those quiet needs, those tucked away needs. So we are making some efforts there. Again, it's not new to COVID, but we did introduce several years ago when we stood up the mental health advisory group, this idea of presenting to our secondary schools and sharing with students the resources that are available within their school, whether it's their school counselor, whether it's their tiered intervention specialist, whether it's NRVCS or NCG. Danny did have a lot of things throughout for employees during the pandemic, making employees aware of the EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, also hosted some virtual EAP groups to really kind of further reduce the stigma and say, really, this is a great opportunity you have as an employee to come out and talk about the situation we're in, the situation we live in, the unprecedented time that is new and taking a toll on all of us. Those are some pieces of the efforts we're making. I don't know if I got specifically at your question, Ms. Franklin. Is there additional points?
Go ahead. I was going to say, I think I do have something to share. You know, we've talked about our next steps of really trying to engage the community as a whole and bring together different community organizations so that, you know, we're really concerned about how we can best meet the needs of our kids so that we can get stakeholders from different groups talk with law enforcement, our hospitals, our mental health providers, and kind of see how we can pool our resources and really provide those wraparound student services to our students. So that's the next step that we are looking at, is trying to create a formal process through which we bring community groups together for us really to sit down and not duplicate efforts, but really combine our efforts together so that we can address this, because it will be something we're looking at for many years.
Oh, right. So you mentioned secondary schools. What are we doing at the elementary level?
So the elementary schools were really, and also through our strategic plan, focusing on the idea of calm down areas, timeout areas, those places in a classroom where if a student needs to step away or take some time, they can do that. We also are beginning to explore the new VDOE social emotional curriculum that talks about a lot of components of being self-aware, understanding your feelings, understanding that feelings are natural, having those opportunities to discuss in a lot of, it's not a new program, but in morning meetings or classroom meetings where students are able to sit down and say, hey, maybe the pandemic has been scary. Maybe I've felt nervous. Maybe I watch all this stuff on TV and I'm scared. So it's an opportunity to discuss, converse, spend some time with sharing those feelings amongst the group. There's also, more specifically, we've got some, I'm sorry, the name escapes me, but there's some stuffed animals out there that have to do with various feelings and emotions that are really meant to drive home the fact that we all have feelings, we all have emotions, and at some point or another, we're all mad or scared or happy, and really drive that home that that's a part of being human. So again, those are not everything, not every effort, but that's some examples. Yes, ma'am, at the elementary level.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other question? Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're going to take a 10-minute quick break. So that means we'll be back at, I'll give you another minute.
9:10.
Yep, at 9:11.
9:11.
I know.
And the next item on our
There you go.
agenda,
Where's your gavel, Penny?
get it to come up. I don't know, they didn't bring it.
no gavel.
Hello.
There you go.
Thank you. Let's see. So the next thing on our agenda is the budget supplement to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, yeah, the budget. So anyway, if Tommy's going to present some of this is the budget we had originally proposed, and yeah, that's okay. And this past week, I've had conversations with all of you, and one thing that we feel that we need to continue to work on is, we've talked about vacancies over the past several weeks. And, the numerous vacancies we have with custodians, aides, recess aides, and then some of the pay of our employees that is not at a living wage. And so, what we've done with the teacher scale over the past years, and it's really been beneficial, is we've beefed up the beginning of the scale to attract new teachers, but then gave everyone, raises throughout the scale. What we've been doing with the other classified administrative staff is basically just giving the set percent. And so the discussion I had with some of you is sort of treating the rest of the employees, doing what we've been doing with teachers. Because when we have shortages of custodians, shortages of aides, it's a hardship on everyone. It really is. And so, so just the question of, how can we move forward? Substitute teachers, another thing. We have to have subs, and we're having a hard time. And we all know that we're in an economy right now where it is hard to find employees, and wages are going up. And so there's a lot of opportunities for folks to work elsewhere, and we're not where we need to be in some areas. And so the possibility of looking at pretty much what we did earlier this year, we, we did it with 3 groups, with aides, custodians, and bus drivers. For instance, with bus drivers, the starting pay before we moved it to $20 an hour was...
Bus driver, at $17.
It was at 17 something, okay? So what you all directed us to do is raise the starting pay to $20 an hour. In doing that, what we had to do was this. There were bus drivers that have been driving for us, say, for instance, 2 or 3 years that were not at $20 an hour. So we had to compress it up. So our new bus drivers would make $20 an hour, but if you've been to create separation on years of experience, we compressed it to new bus drivers making 20, but anyone who was maybe 1 or 2 years, they would make a little more than that. And so if we went this route, that's what we would do with all of our employee groups. If we had some direction from the board as to what is the minimum amount of money that you would want our employees any employee that works for us to make. So just like to hear your thoughts on that and move from there.
Board? No thoughts?
I mean, I think the general answer ought to be we should pay market, and the market can shift. And if there's jobs where we're paying $17 an hour and you can't get enough people, then we need to try to pay more money to do that. That's kind of maybe the technical answer. Generally speaking, as we've raised, I think was it the administrative assistants that came to us recently, and we're highlighting how basically they've basically been compressed.
They were not a group that we actually raised.
Yeah, so to where their starting pay is I think is like $12 an hour, and then we've boosted all other people up to 15. So I mean, again, I don't want to do your job for you guys. I don't want to tell you this is what it has to be, because I do think that to some degree the market does set those things, but it does not. Something seems off there. If we're paying custodians $15 an hour, we should be paying our administrative assistants at least that much as well. So. So to answer your question directly, that's where I'm at. And I did have an idea for how we can maybe get there a little bit more quickly that I'll talk about. But
I agree, 100%.
Yep. Again, I don't know. what the exact number needs to be. If it's 15, then I think that makes sense, right? So that way everybody's at the same point, and then you compress up from that. So if y'all think that's the right number.
So one of the things, Dr. Meyer and I had our one-on-one this past week, and one of the things that I brought up to him, two things on the budget. One was the addition of a GRT, which I think he said something we might be able to do in there. But the other thing is, and I'd asked this question the last time the budget came before us, and we have this for this year, at least right now, we're still assuming a 5% average raise. And the way that we do that with like teachers, for example, is we have 30 steps?
32.
32 steps now. So we have 32 steps. So if you're a first-year teacher, you're on step 1. If you've been here for 32 years, you're on step 32. But what happens is the step one doesn't get a 5% raise, and step 32 gets a 5% raise. It depends on a lot of different things. It depends on what we're trying to do. If we're trying to raise the starting pay, if we're trying to do something else, different sides of the scale might get different raises. But I will say, in general, when you are making more money, if you get the same, if we just gave that 5% raise across the board, what happens over time is our scale gets expanded quite a bit. And that's, I think we took 2 years was it the Evergreen study or the other?
It was an Evergreen study.
Yeah, so
really
to try to get our scales kind of reined back in. So one thing I noticed is that we had, for every different employee group, we would have that same 5%. So teachers get an average of a 5% raise. Administrators get an average of a 5% raise. Maybe bus drivers or custodians or whatever get an average of a 5% raise. And I could be slightly off here, but my idea was to empower the staff to give an across-the-board 5% raise, like we do within a category like teachers, but allow them, so on average, the raises could be 5%, but different groups could get more. So if we're trying to raise the salary, let's say, of administrative assistants or of aides or bus drivers or something like that, maybe their average as a group might be, 6% instead of 5% or whatever it needs to be to kind of get them there. And then maybe another group that we've spent a lot of time already bringing them up to speed in their market or whatever, maybe they don't need quite as much of a raise. So maybe on average, that group gets 4% or something like that. It gives us a little bit more flexibility to react to where the needs are at a given time. So
I think what we would need is in our finance department is give me as a director from the board, where do you want to see the least anyone makes? Okay, and then sort of go from there. And then, because what's happened with what was happening, because it wasn't an average, the only group that had an average of was teachers. The others were simply straight, either 3%, 5%, whatever it was. So what's happened is what was happening with teachers. Previously, it's created an expansion and from top to bottom. And so to stop that spread, it would be good to sort of do what we did with our other groups as well.
Like years of experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's always based on years of experience with us.
Right.
It's not, it's never based on performance, with us. And so, so just allowing us to do that would be very, very beneficial, and just knowing where to start. Of course, we're talking about a 5% right now. I don't know where it's going to end with the board of supervisors in the state as to how much money we'd get. But what it would look like if we went this direction, what it would look like in the end is it would be an average of whatever it ends up being for the entire division, with a minimum pay that an individual makes is X. And the lowest percent anyone gets was X. So let's say it ended up being 3%. I would hope it would, we would be an average of 3% with the lowest $15 an hour for any employee. The lowest raise anyone gets is maybe 2%, and just working it like that. But it would definitely help us with our shortages, because there's some areas that we need to focus on. I mean, we have a shortage of, we raised the custodian pay, but we still aren't hitting it where we need to be able to keep our rooms clean. And, you know, what happens is when we don't have employees in certain areas, like our custodians and our aides, bus drivers, it's a hardship on everyone. You know, it really is. It's a hardship on the other custodians who are working. They have to do their job and someone else's job. So I think our employees understand why this is important. You know, something else that I would ask the board to consider is to allow us to take a look at the substitute pay as well, because getting substitute teachers in, as you can see, is vital because the hardship is on our teachers having to cover when substitutes are not in. So just looking at substitutes as well, if y'all would allow us to do that. And then, you know, of course, in the next couple of weeks, we will we'll hear what the county administrator is recommending, and then the board of supervisors will approve whatever they're going to recommend or whatever they're going to give us. And then at that time, the states will know more about the state. So we'll know more about the pot of money we have and what we could actually do. It's a little harder with the other employee groups compared to teachers because it's a lot of hand calculating and you know, that it gets a little more cumbersome. But our finance folks are really good at doing that,
doable.
and it's doable, and they'd be able to do it. So I guess just listening to, what would you say for us to work at? What's the minimum pay we think our folks should work? Is it everyone, or is it part-time and full-time? What do you think? Thoughts?
Hey, well, because I didn't get a chance to chime in. So I've been saying this for years. We need to pay folks more. We won't have these problems. And as we've had to increase folks through the COVID, I'm like, yep, see, should have done that already. And actually $15, actually don't know exactly the living wage in this area, but right now $15 an hour is still not something that folks can really live off of. So I'll just throw my 2-3 cents in and saying we need to look at what the living wage is. Definitely start at $15 is what I would say. And our part-time employees, I think, have to be included in this because without them, we still can't function. So if we're going to do enhancements for employees, they are our employees too.
I agree with Ms. Franklin. I would caution us, and this is kind of an open-ended question, right, that you're asking us, and I agree with that sentiment, and I think we should work to get there. But just like we did with the teachers, sometimes it takes several years. So I don't know that I would want you guys to hole yourselves in this budget cycle that you have to fix all of that right now, especially depending on you know how the money plot ends up looking. But I do think it's a good goal to work towards, and I think having that flexibility between groups and stuff should allow you to get there quicker, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with, you know, trying to get to $15 an hour across the board for all the staff would be the goal.
So is there a motion so that we can give better
Do we need a motion, or?
I don't.
Guidance.
Yeah, I don't know that you do, because we still have written it as a average of 5% increase. It's about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do need to submit that, they need to approve the statement of needs.
Oh.
That is correct. That schedule right there needs to be adopted so that we can present to the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
February
Right.
28th.
Yeah. No wording needs to be changed in how we've done it, I guess is my
Correct.
point.
Yeah.
We can still use the wording average increase of 5%
Correct.
with us knowing how it may be distributed with your guidance and as we move forward. So yeah, we still need to, I need you all to adopt the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, as it
Yes, sir.
stands.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if there's,
Motion to,
okay, there's been a motion to adopt the budget as presented to go to the Board of Supervisors. Is there a second?
Second.
No more discussion? Let's do a roll call vote.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Turbaka?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Still with us? I
She
couldn't
is.
hear.
Did she say
Okay,
yes?
I couldn't
Okay.
hear.
I am. Thank you.
All right, next is a CARES Act funding update. Mr. Grant's here to provide an update on CARES Act funding. Can you do it from there?
Where would you like me to do it? I mean, I can do it.
Do it from there, it's fine.
Yeah. So you can see this is the different pots of money we've gotten on our CARES Act. We started with the state CRF of $1.73 million. That's already been spent and the funds received. All of these grants we fund on the front end and then we get reimbursed on the back end. The county, we did an additional $500,000 that they had received from the state that they weren't going to spend. We've spent that, been reimbursed. ESSER 1 was 1.47. Again, we spent it and we've been reimbursed. ESSER 2, we've been awarded $6.047 million. We've expended to date $2.418 million, leaving us an available balance of $3.629. We've got funds we've received of $1.453, and I've got $964,000 of receipts that are in the process of being reimbursed to us. Now those funds have to be spent by June 30th of 2023. There is no exceptions. The American Rescue Plan is the big $13.5 million. We've spent $364,000, leaving us with $13.2. Those funds is scheduled for reimbursement. Those are the funds that are the $10 million for CHS, and those have to be spent by June 30th of 2024, no exception. Then the CSLFRF was funds that the state had that they weren't going to be able to spend, so they kind of redivided it up for all the school systems. It's a ventilation fund specifically of $1.954 million. And those also have to be spent by December 31st of 2024. Now, as we got into the American Rescue Plan of the 13.2, the state did approve our request for CHS. When we do that, the rules do change, and that and each one of these has had different sets of rules, very specific. We have to comply, for example, on our construction project with the Davis-Bacon Act. We did not have that requirement in earlier ESSER-related projects. So that's where we're at with CARES Act. The bulk of the funds to date are going to be going toward the CHS construction. Number 2 will be summer learning that we can do for the next 2 years. Number 3 was additional personnel that we needed to address learning loss inside of our schools. And then number 4 is PPEs. That's where they're being driven. Any questions?
Okay.
All right.
Okay, but there is nothing in any of the grants, and I have read every page of everything that says you have to have people wear masks to get money. There is no correlation on the financial side. Okay?
Thanks, Tommy. Next, we need to reallocate funds based on the construction of CPS, CES, BES. If you explain that, Tommy.
Yes, sir. So when we started off, we had the bond issue of $35 million, and it actually was $35 million the county put up out of their general reserves. For bond purposes, we needed to pick some estimates. We did based off of conversations with the architect. That's where the 19, 11, and the $5 million came from. When we did the contract with Branch on the PPEA, they gave us a guaranteed maximum price. Their numbers are the revised budget column there, 16.9, 10, and 8, still equals $35 million. And all we're doing is truing up our initial purchase order to what the actual GMP purchase order should be. So it has no other effect.
I motion to approve the request for the reallocation of funds to the Board of Supervisors.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I did want to say that it's pretty, I mean, has this, I guess you said it was guaranteed to be 35 million, but when I first looked at this, I thought it was pretty amazing that we actually stayed on that budget, but I guess that was part of the contract, right?
Well, I mean, we only have $35 million is in the budget. And that's all we were provided by the county. So at the end
so
of
we
the
had to
day,
stay
we have to
within it,
stay within
Okay.
that budgeted number.
Yeah, I still think and I think it's amazing. I mean, looking at these numbers, I mean, looking at what we did to CPS, for example, for, 16.9 million, that's pretty,
That's why I don't sleep at night.
It does give us hope for, as we move forward in some other projects, seeing that we did a large school like CPS and what we are doing there for, almost about 17 million.
Yeah.
I think we can see some hope in some other projects with the 15 million that we're going to get, from the county on top of the CHS money to be able to really move on some of that too right now for some of our other schools to be discussed.
Yeah. The Bellevue number definitely, that one piqued me because I got to razz Mark about it later when we get a chance to talk. But
I know you would.
I know, right? But that one, I think originally it started off at 4 and then we went to 5 when we did the actual bond issue.
That's got a bigger scope than you're thinking. Bellevue is a bigger scope.
Sure.
And I know the conversation you're talking about. It's two different scopes that is that difference.
So why do we think 5 and end up 8?
Well, because we had the 5 in the head, and I mean, that's what we initially projected Bellevue, but I mean, we've got the parent bus loop in the back. Okay?
Did we
a lot of site work there.
Remind me, Tommy, did we end up adding a couple of classrooms and taking from the others?
Yes, sir, we
Because of
did.
the possible growth
We added 5.
down
there.
114?
We added 5, which was a net of 4 because we moved
Yeah.
out 1 pre-K.
I think originally we were not going to add as many classrooms at Bellevue, but then we started seeing the growth down 114, and I think we end up pulling some classrooms because we had already redistricted CES, CPS to where we were going to be okay.
Yeah.
Start looking at that growth down 114, and I think I remember the conversation with you basically say, I think how many you
I
told
see.
me?
So staying within the budget, we were able to add more
Yes, sir.
classrooms. So the scope grew. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And the 4 classrooms are the
sense.
equivalent of about $1.6 million.
Okay. Cool.
Just 4 classrooms.
So
Thank you, guys. Thanks for
Yes,
all your
sir.
work on this. It's really amazing. I'm excited. I did get a chance last month when we went and toured CES and CPS. It's pretty cool
incredible.
to see what we can do with
It
the
is
renovations.
unbelievable. All of CPS, just most all are in the new section now, waiting for the old to be renovated. I was at Bellevue the other day and kidding with the PE teacher. I asked her if she would like to move back to the cafeteria for PE, and she said, absolutely not. I mean, just having a dedicated gym is just, I can't tell you in elementary school what that means to creating an elementary schedule, to not have to use a gym and the cafeteria is the same space. And so it's just been really good, and it's just it's so good to see the kids in those spaces. So
I can't wait till everything's finished and
I know.
open it up to the public to see exactly
Absolutely.
what we have done. Amazing.
Tommy, you're still up with the sale of Cambria?
Yes,
Wait a
sir.
minute, wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did y'all vote on?
We didn't vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought y'all
So
voted. I
there's a
apologize.
motion and a second. No more discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
All right.
Now,
Now, Cambria, sale of the property at Cambria, our old
Yes, sir.
transportation, and this is due to our garage. Actually, I had Mr. Hudson was here early. We went and looked at the new garage out here. It is it's if you almost need to see the old one to then come see the new one to understand the difference of working conditions for our mechanics, and it's amazing what we're doing over here for a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to build a new garage.
Yes,
We've saved our county a lot of money by doing this. So,
Yes, sir.
Tommy.
So on the Cambria Street, if you go to the next slide, do you have the, oh, you gave it, I'm sorry, Brendan. So the closing is scheduled for March 8th. We do know that the seller intends to close. They're trying to make sure that they have their property survey complete, as well as they have conversations going on with the town about the designation for themselves on that property. We expect to hear tomorrow that those conversations were positive and it's been resolved, but we may have a delay of 1 or 2 days on the closing time. It won't kill, though, the transaction. The gross sales proceeds are $800,000. We have estimated closing costs of $50,000. That'll leave us with net proceeds at closing of $750,000. I'm asking you to please approve at those funds to be deposited with the county in a capital account for future projects, which is what we've done in the past with proceeds. Then we'll come back to you once we know where to allocate those funds to. Probably if the superintendent agrees, and I think he will, at the March 1st meeting, give you an update on capital and reallocate some of the dollars that we've got. And so I asked y'all's approval to put that into that. And I needed it tonight so I can get onto the Board of Supervisors at the meeting before the March 8th closing. So that's why I've asked.
I motion to approve the sale of the Cambria Street property.
Second.
Designation of funds to the capital
Projects,
project.
future projects, capital future projects.
So that's your motion?
Second.
Jamie seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Next is y'all's.
Huh?
Yeah, you asked us to bring back that policy 1-6.8 on public address.
For public address.
Yeah, if y'all want to look at doing anything different on public address, as was decided differently from last year, I believe. So,
So right now, go ahead, Jamie.
I was just going to say, so I guess I'm kind of who brought this up because I think when we changed it, it was before COVID, and it might have made a little sense, but after COVID, it kind of didn't, it just didn't work very well. And, I guess I thought, okay, well, let's try it and see as far as extending it for an hour and understanding we definitely have business to do, but it's really tough when you encourage people to come out and speak. And even though as tonight, sometimes we don't like what they might say, we still encourage people to come and speak. And when they don't get to be heard, it makes it really difficult. And when we were having a couple of the meetings at the high schools and we got through the hour and then we did our business, and some of those community members left. Some stayed, and it was like 11:30 or 12 o'clock, but the decision was already voted on before they even got to speak. And I just kind of, I don't know, I think it left just a bad taste, so to speak, in some of our community members' mouth. And I just think we might want to relook at that, the way we did it. I don't know if in legality, if we can have just public address nights when we have large issues, or I don't know. I'm just looking for some ideas of how we can fix the problem that we had, because it seemed like a couple of those nights, you only heard from maybe one side of the issue, whether that be right or whether that be wrong. And I just don't know that that's a good way to do it. So
I think what you're referring to, we can do like a whole night of something. That's called a public hearing. There's some that I think the state requires us to do, like the budget.
Right.
And we have a public hearing, and it's very rare that anybody ever shows up. I hear what you're saying, Jamie, and I agree. I agree. It did not feel good when we had already. For me, the part that didn't feel good was especially the part where we voted on something when we hadn't heard, if it was the will of the board, if the will of the board was to hear more people, maybe we should have tabled it. I don't know. The hang up that I always have with this, I think that the flip side to that same night is that, by the time we were done that night, right, after we kind of cut everybody short and we came back out, it was after midnight, right?
Yeah, well.
So the reason we put this policy in place was to make sure that we can get through our business. So I do think, I think one solution is probably when it comes to kind of some of these bigger topics, to maybe we should be scheduling more public hearings, whether that happens before the meeting or on a different night. I don't know. Yeah, there's a few other things too I think we should look at with public comment. I mean, I think the stuff that happened tonight, I think we should, revisit with our legal counsel, updating our policy so that it aligns with what our legal counsel has told us about, what kind of speech and public comment is allowed and what kind we can shut down. And, I had shared some things from VSBA that I picked up too, that I'd love to also have those considered. So, I mean, this is the forum to do all of that. So, I guess all I'm saying is it'd be good to talk about it, but I think maybe we want to, hopefully, I don't know that we'll solve it tonight, but I think that we should discuss some of the different areas and chew on them and maybe even talk to our legal counsel about some of them. And then when we go to alter the policy, we kind of do everything at once.
And maybe we could look at some changes to the sign up, not the actual process of signing up, but, maybe we could find a way to hear all the speakers that are going to be talking about an agenda item that's going to be voted on first. And then on top of that, from across the community, because sometimes it seems a little heavy as to who signs up the quickest in certain community areas. And I think if there were some ways to adjust that might help with keeping our policy the way it is. And then the fallout after, closed session, if there's still people to talk, they wouldn't be talking about things that we had just voted on.
Well, that or even do a random pick, like instead of going down the list that it might have been signed up for, because it does seem like that sometimes that, and there's some people that are just very organized and on top of things, and there's some people like me who's just at the last minute going, yeah, I'm going to go. So, and they are at the end of and don't get to be heard, and we want to hear those people too. And I just I don't know that I have an answer, but if the board doesn't want to entertain changing it, then okay, my request would be in sign up, we randomly draw names. So that way we don't know, exactly, or say if you've got 5 people that sign up right off the bat, then you're getting some that signed up at the later hour. I don't know.
And make sure that it's going to be the ones we hear first or the ones are on things we're voting on that night.
Right. I mean, I guess that's a tough thing because I don't know that I completely agree with that, because that group of people can come the next week when we're speaking about something else. So, that's a catch.
I mean, I don't really have a super strong opinion about this. I mean, obviously, you guys got this policy in place, I guess, last year or so, right? So, I mean, I guess I would be more in favor of just not having a limit, as opposed to if people marshaled, wanted to kind of get there first and get their voices heard, like good on them, right? I wouldn't want to take that away from them at the expense of just hearing from people who are later. I'd rather hear from everybody, right? So, I mean, I can always drink more Mountain Dew and stay longer. I'm fine.
And that's kind of what we did before. And it seemed like some meetings were going and we would hear public address till 10 or 11 o'clock, and then we weren't getting our business taken care of. So we kind of had to change up a little bit on that.
So let's keep in mind that we do hear everyone, right?
Yeah.
It's just it's a matter of the order in which it's done.
Right.
And I believe that the board can, and when we discussed this the first time when we changed it, Brenda can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we asked her then, at any time during that, the board, and maybe this is one solution, right? The board can always change the agenda to move that vote to the very end, right? So for right now, what we do is we go up to an hour, right? And then we finish the meeting basically, and then we have public address again after closed session. we could always, move the vote on something that we know there's a bunch of people here to talk about to the very end of the meeting then. That would at least solve that one problem.
I don't think our current policy allows us to do that.
Okay, so I think everybody's had a chance to speak, and I have to wait till last because this is where I'm at tonight. Let me throw my 2 cents in there. The last time this was revised was August 10th, 2021, so it was right in the middle of COVID.
Okay, you're right.
And I said the exact words that you all are saying now, that this wouldn't be fair to some folks not to let them speak before the meeting, and to ask folks to stay till after a closed session that could be at 12 o'clock at night was just wrong. And here we are having this discussion. I do agree. At some point, we have to take care of business. And my suggestion would be is that we amend the policy to go up to an hour and a half. And then after the regular meeting, not after closed session, if there's anyone else who still wants to speak, to allow another 30 minutes after that. Because I'm with you, Linwood. I think we should let everybody, but I also know at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and we're still trying to push through business, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's easy for me to say that. I haven't gone through that yet, right? I mean, it's fine, but I mean, I totally understand that. But I mean, I take Jamie's point too. I mean, if folks take the time to come out of their life, come out here and talk, and for a lot of people, that's stressful, right? And they kind of build themselves up. I mean, I was out speaking in front of you guys, a year ago, right? It's hard. You practice it in front of a mirror, right? And then to get out here and not be able to do it. I mean, it's not fun. So yeah. I mean, I don't feel super strong about it, but I do like trying to appease the community as best we can in that regard.
Would you like us to bring back a revised policy to take a look at based on what Ms. Franklin just told?
Yeah, I do like that.
I like that. That's a good compromise.
That's a good compromise. Very good.
Let me ask this. So on that VSBA session that I attended, which was basically dealing with, this person had done a bunch of work around the state with school boards who were having, issues with, the same people coming and talking and that kind of a thing. And the 2 suggestions that stuck out that I wrote down and shared with you guys last time, but since we're having this conversation, I'll share them again. Basically, she was encouraging strategies to boost broader voices in the community, and especially marginalized people. So, I think what we've done with the online stuff, I think, was something that came up that was a good thing. I don't know if did we make that permanent or not, or is that still just, okay. So I think that's been a good thing. The other 2 suggestions that came up that I thought were pretty good was to let any of our students who come out to speak could get precedence and speak first.
Just because of them having homework and.
Exactly, yeah. And the second one was to let anybody who has never spoken before us have precedence in the order. So in other words, we don't get that many speakers over the course of a semester or a year. So if you're somebody that's come and spoken to us about a topic before, people who've never spoken to us before get precedence. That's an idea. So I don't know. I mean, I wrote this lady's name down. I think I have her card. I was even thinking about, we could reach out to her. She helps with this type of thing. If we're cracking it open, I don't know if it's worth looking into things like that as well.
I really like the student one.
Yeah, I like the student piece too, but I really don't like trying to pick and choose among folks who have signed up, because there may have been someone who speaks to us every board meeting and they signed up at the top of the list because they want to go home because they've got things they want to do too, and not sit and wait for hours. And quite frankly, if you're going to start speaking and addressing public bodies, then you're going to have to get smart about it. And that's one way to be at the end of the list, and you're here sitting at 9 o'clock at night waiting to speak. Next time, you're going to get on there and sign up earlier.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking. I like the student piece, but I also know there's parents that have students at home that are little and they've got to bathe and
Sure.
do homework and things like that. And I kind of feel like that's just as, as important. So I do like the idea, and if you guys will, if the board agrees that that's a good direction to go in for the hour and a half and then finish the business meeting and then go back and do opposed to at the end of closed session, I think that would help tremendously with some of the issue.
So what Mr. Franklin said was 1.5 hours during the meeting and then half an hour between the meeting and closed session. That gives a total of 2 hours. It's been really rare that we've had more than 2 hours worth of public comment and.
Okay. We'll put something together and bring that back for you to look at the next meeting. Sure.
Okay. So that moves us to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business for tonight? Hearing none, any new business?
So, on the new business, I don't know, there was, I guess, some stuff back and forth today about whether or not our work sessions was going to be streamed in some way or not. Is that something that we need to bring up at a future meeting and discuss?
Sure. I mean, it would be good to get some clarity so we're not last minute getting this thing together. We'll do whatever the will of the board is in this area.
You can add that too.
I will say, too, that I've asked Mr. Wickham and work with Mr. Krantz to actually get a cost estimate to transform this room into something that we can just rely on to be able to live stream without having to use an outside company's equipment. I would think that in the end, the cost of doing it would actually save us money. And I think we're seeing that we're getting really good use out of this new professional development room, and could probably be used for more than just board meetings as well. So we'll get that cost for you as well and bring that back at another meeting too.
Okay, so are there any announcements or information? Okay, so you can look at your agenda and see our next meeting is on March 1st. We hope to meet at the County Government Center, but we'll finalize and see how things go. And I can pretty much tell you I won't be able to breathe. So, Dr. Myers,
Yes, ma'am.
is there anything we need to go to closed session?
Yeah, I have two employees I would like to notify you in regards that will be on the personnel report. It shouldn't take but a couple minutes if you don't mind.
Okay.
We should go upstairs.
Yeah, we'll go upstairs and do this. Sure.
So, is there a
Mr. Knott, would you
motion to
join
go
me,
into
please?
closed?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, to discuss a personnel matter? Okay. There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're in closed session.
Is Dana going to join us for closed
Dana,
session?
I'll call you.
Okay.